Oh man, look at all this text. Very long answer choices, a kind of long passage. Even if you kind of skim it, you can see there's lots of names and sciencey words. This is going to be tough. But let's focus first on the question. What do they want? Which finding, if true, so this is something outside the passage, would most directly support these people's claim? So we need to know their claim, and then we're going to try our best to summarize it to see if we can support it easily. So mosasaurs were large marine reptiles that lived in the late Cretaceous period, approximately 100 million to 66 million years ago. No claim has been made yet. Right? That's just a statement about what a mosasaur is. Suarez, Perez-Huerta, and Harrell Jr. examined oxygen-18 isotopes in mosasaur tooth enamel in order to calculate likely mosasaur body temperatures and determined that mosasaurs were endothermic. So notice I'm skipping to that part, and then the claim might be that they're endothermic. So let's see. That is, they used internal metabolic processes to maintain a stable body temperature in a variety of ambient temperatures. So endothermic means stable body temperature. These people claim, so that's good, that endothermy would have enabled mosasaurs to include relatively cold polar waters in their range. So include cold water. Okay, so maybe there's going to be something about proving that these mosasaurs are endothermic. But it really does say that the claim here is more about the location, right? So the claim is that they lived in cold water. So I'd love to get something that's really more focused on that. Notice that how the importance of focusing on the question here. Let's see if I'm right. Okay, number 11A. Mosasaurs' likely body temperatures are easier to determine from tooth enamel oxygen-18 isotope data than the body temperatures of non-endothermic late Cretaceous marine reptiles are. Nothing about the location. So that's a lot of science, but the fact that it's not about where they lived doesn't seem good. So I'll leave it because I barely understand it, but I don't think it's right. B. Fossils of both mosasaurs and non-endothermic marine reptiles have been found in roughly equal numbers in regions known to be near the poles, so that's about location, during the late Cretaceous, though in lower concentrations than elsewhere. I'm not going to bother to understand it. Let's just think about, okay, it talks about the location. We'll worry about the differences later. Let's just keep it in for now. This one didn't, so I can eliminate A, I guess. Okay. Several mosasaur fossils have been found in regions known to be near the poles during the late Cretaceous, while relatively few fossils of non-endothermic marine reptiles have been found in those locations. So it's clearly talking about location. Again, let's not dive too deep here. Let's just keep it in for now. B and C both seem at least to hit the dumbest version of my summary, okay? D, during the late Cretaceous, seawater temperatures were likely higher throughout mosasaurs' range, including near the poles, than seawater temperatures at those same latitudes are today. Well, I get that it's talking about their range, but it's kind of just talking about it as a whole. I don't like this one as much. You've heard me talk about this in other questions. And so the main character is wrong here. Now, we have to be very generous with that word character. Maybe you would just say main idea. But the main character of this claim is the location, right? The main character of this choice is the temperature. It should be the location, right? So I don't love that. Let's dive a little deeper, though. Let's see if we can maybe smarten up our dumb summary. So what is B doing? Fossils of both mosasaurs and non-endothermic marine reptiles. So this is a comparison. Comparisons are sometimes bad, but I think that's what we want here, comparisons. So we've got the mosasaur, which is endothermic, and the non-endothermics have been found in roughly equal numbers in regions known to be near the poles, though in lower concentrations elsewhere. So the comparison between endo and non-endo is that they're the same, right? Roughly equal. Okay, let's look at C. Several mosasaur fossils have been found in regions known to be near the poles during the late Cretaceous, while relatively few fossils of non-endothermic marine reptiles have been found in those locations. So endo in the poles, non is not in the poles. So there's a comparison as well, but here they're saying there's a difference. So let's go back to the passage. Are they trying to say that mosasaurs are different than other things? Well, let's take a look. Mosasaur body temperatures are endothermic. They use internal metabolic processes to maintain a stable body temperature in a variety of temperatures, right? So they're able to live where there's a variety of temperatures. It seems to be what they're saying. They claimed that it would have enabled mosasaurs to include relatively cold polar waters in their range. So it does seem like being endothermic gives these things an ability to go to the cold, right? Because they lived in cold water, and we add this, because they're endothermic. So that's going to point me to choice C, because that's kind of saying the same thing, right? The mosasaurs have been found in the regions known to be near the poles, while relatively few non-endothermic have been found in those locations. So the endothermic mosasaur lives at the poles because it's endothermic, whereas the other things can't live at the poles because they're not endothermic. See how the because is now about whether this endothermic or non-endothermic is happening? So C is the answer. B is kind of getting rid of that difference and saying that they both live at the poles, and so therefore there isn't really a difference between endothermic and non-endothermic because they're both found in that region. But the passage is trying to say that this endothermic ability is special. It's really tricky. And I perfectly understand why C is the answer. Like, I get the logic of all this. It took a little bit, but I understand it. But even if you're not quite at where I am, or you don't think you could have gotten there yourself, I think you could have gotten choice C by thinking strategically and just trusting your dumb summary, right? What did they say in the claim? These things live at the poles. Which choice says that they live at the poles? Not A. B kind of does, right? They are saying they live near the poles, right? Near the poles, so that's C. D is saying they live near the poles, but then you can ask the question, okay, of B, C, and D, which one is about like being endothermic or not? Because that's the other thing that they seem to be claiming. And C, I really do think it comes down to understanding that this is saying they're the same, this is saying they're different. And that by itself, you might not understand why it matters that they're different or the same, but you might be like, okay, like if you're trying to support something about this, like maybe then the fact that they're different would support it, right? Like, I don't know. You can probably at least make some sort of like lucky guess or smart guess, I guess, about why C is better. These are going to be tricky. This is the hard section. So you're going to need to think through the logic a little bit more. And that was really what this question was testing, is can you understand the logic of what they're saying? Can you add on to the conclusion? So it's not really about understanding the choices or the passage so much as it is like building on an argument and understanding the argument they're making. It's an interesting skill, but it's going to be one that you probably need some practice getting used to.